Officers working for ICE's enforcement and removal operations made about 72,000 arrests this year. That is a steep decline from the 104,000 arrests made in 2020. Joining me right now is a former acting DHS secretary. He is a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation, Chad Wolf. Chad, it's always great to talk with you. Thanks very much for being here. I want to get your reaction first on that decline in the number of arrests.
Well, Maria, it's just remarkable. Again, we see this administration giving ICE law enforcement officers new guidelines and new policy direction week after week, basically telling them not to do their job, not to enforce the law, and not to remove individuals that are eligible to be removed. And so the numbers that you just showed are an example of that. The lowest that we've seen in over a decade. That's essentially one arrest per month per ICE law enforcement removal official. Think about that, one arrest per month. It's quite remarkable what this administration is doing to the men and women of ICE, and I would say it's abolishing ICE by policy memorandum, a cut a little week by week by week.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're looking at pictures of me at the border once again. Went to the border a couple of weeks ago. It was the third time there. In just the last couple of years, we talked with some migrants who had just crossed. Even with this decline in arrests, it's in our faces quite clear that we're looking at a worsening situation, Chad, whereas 1.7 million people were apprehended at the border. These people are jumping ahead of the line. There is a structure in place to come to this country legally, and yet they're just sneaking, in, and then there are all those gotaways. What kind of an impact do you see this having on the country?
Well, it's having a significant impact, right? So it's not only about what happens on the border, but it's about what happens in these communities across the United States. So if individuals who come across that border illegally make it past Border Patrol and in communities, and then ICE becomes aware of them, this administration is not allowing them to remove those individuals. But it's also about the human trafficking. It's about the illegal narcotics that are coming across the border in record amounts because Border Patrol agents and officers are not on the line any longer. They're in their facilities taking care of the large amounts of migrants that are coming into custody each and every day. And so just the dramatic number of folks, 1.7 million in FY21 alone, illegal apprehensions, that's breaking the system. And I think we're seeing the result of it, high narcotics and human trafficking that we've never seen before.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Joe Biden refuses to acknowledge it. It was really embarrassing to see him lie the other day on that town hall and say, oh, yeah, I've been there. I know all about it. When, in fact, there's absolutely no evidence that Joe Biden was ever at the border, not as senator, vice president, or president. And we've got this data from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and it reveals that thousands of migrants are on the way. They're overseas trying to cross into the United States through the southern border. Border Patrol agents encountering thousands of Indians, Russians, hundreds of Chinese nationals in the last year, Chad. So all this time we're talking about the Northern Triangle, like Venezuela and Guatemala, and yet we're talking about increasing numbers from all over the world, and the Mexican cartels are charging different numbers for depending on where you're from. If you're from China, you actually could be you could be charged $40,000-$50,000 a head, we're told, to get into the country, because it's all about what the Mexican cartels tell you.
Well, I think those numbers and statistics show you that it's no longer just an issue with the Western Hemisphere. This is not about just individuals from Mexico or the Northern Triangle trying to come into the country, but these are individuals all across the world that are trying to get here because they know the border is open, that if you make it across the border, you will remain here in the United States. And you're exactly right. I mean, there's reporting that the cartels are making upwards to $14 million a day on this human trafficking and the smuggling network that they have put in place. It's become more profitable than smuggling the illegal narcotics across the border today. So, again, across the board, the policies that the Biden administration are implementing are making Americans less safe at the end of the day.
We're looking at pictures right now of the advertisements that we brought you. These are ads on cell phones that we want to show our audience. In one of them, it says 7 in Sarita for 700. In other words, there are 7 illegals waiting in Sarita to be driven. They're advertising their services on TikTok, Chad. So obviously these Mexican cartels are looking for kids. And they've got them. We have pictures of one 16-year-old who was arrested because he was driving this red truck that went over in a ditch. He was 16, no driver's license, and he had crammed 13 illegal migrants in this van. They all needed stitches when they went over and tipped over in the ditch. So, what are we going to do about these American citizens that are responding, teenagers who are responding to these ads that the Mexican cartels are putting on TikTok to become the getaway car? And then what they're doing is they're going back and forth from the border to Houston, driving these illegals into Houston.
Yeah, Maria. Well, first, we need to apprehend these individuals, and then you need to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law, and you need to make an example and to deter others in a behavior like this. But at the end of the day, this is being driven by the policy of the administration. I can't emphasize that enough. You wouldn't have this type of advertisement on TikTok and these individuals coming from the interior of the country down to the border to smuggle and to do this if you didn't have the policies that allowed them to do it in the first place. And I think that's critically important.
Of course.
When you have catch and release and you have these Border Patrol agents pulled off the line, this is incentivizing and encouraging this type of behavior. And I hope that the administration, I'm not holding my breath, but I do hope that the administration changes its course when we talk about border security.
Yeah, well, Alejandro Mayorkas continues to have the nerve to look straight in our eyes and say, oh, yeah, the border's closed. It's outrageous, actually. Chad, it's good to see you. Thanks very much. Chad Wolf joining us this morning on the crisis that is the border.